air conditioner gauges. It's just very pristine in the box. And we got the neat little plastic on here. Some people leave the plastic on these things so that they can always have perfect looking gauges. I just tear the plastic off, you know. But there's only so much you can protect gauges from. Alright, now who can show me the high side gauge?
It's the red one.
The high side gauge is the red one. It's obviously a dead giveaway when this one says high and that one says low, right? Alright. Now these are R134, you can tell because they got the fitting there. Now in this bag, we have some fittings here. Okay, come here. Come here, Brandon. Alright, I'm going to hold that, or you hold that. You hold that while I'm doing this. Hold that, we're going to be watching this. We're going to take these gauges. We have a red hose, we've got a yellow hose, and we've got a blue hose. The yellow hose is the one that's actually going to go to your vacuum pump or your Freon tank. Got that? Alright, what do you see here? You notice the two ends on each hose. We have ends with O-rings, and we have ends that are fittings, and these go on here. Now we obviously are going to match up the colors when we put these together, and we're going to put the blue one there, and we're going to put the, whoops, I got the wrong end of that. What a buffoon. I'll put the red one there. I'm going to tighten them up really good so they don't have any leaks. We don't want to leak any refrigerant out into the air because it's against the law and it's a bad idea to do it anyway. Alright, now then, for the time being, see this right here? Obviously we're going to match up colors again. We're going to put this fitting right here on here. And that O-ring squishes down so it doesn't let it come up. Now we got a blue one. We're going to put a blue one on there. And we're going to let that one squish down. Just like that. Now then, this is first use. These have never been used before. Alright. Now obviously, we're not going to put the yellow one on there yet. What this manifold does, when you take the, when you got these tight, and these aren't tight right now. When these right here are open, like this one is, what that means is that this is connected to the one that's open. Like if I open that one, there's a connection between here and here that lets gas flow. Now a lot of times one of these will have a check valve on the high side. This is the low side. If you're just charging the refrigerant system with a can that you're going to put on here, you're typically going to go in through the low side. Okay, so we're not going to put the yellow hose on there right now, but we're going to make sure these are nice and snug. You notice these are reading 0 right now. Now, I also want to point this out. This little cap right here, like if this winds up not being pointing at 0, you can pop that little cap off and turn that screw and adjust the gauge. These are adjustable gauges. Some people don't know that, but that's what that is. You can see a little screw behind that cap. You get a good shot of that? All right. Nothing like some good high definition video. Here you've got a sight glass, so you can see what's flowing through there. Okay? Now then, what we're going to do here is we're going to connect this under here and over here. Now, which one of these is the high side and which one's the low side? Who can tell me? And how do you know this?
Because that is the inlet hose and that would be the outlet hose.
No, actually, this is a suction line.
That's right, my bad.
Suction line. The big line's the suction line. The small line's the discharge line. Yeah. All right. You notice these are different sizes anyway, so they're not going to go on there but one way. Now, it's federal law that when I have this loosened up like that, whatever happens to be in here is going to be trapped. Now, ordinarily, if we were hooking our big machine up, we would take our refrigerant identifier, connect to this, make sure it was all 100% R134. Just so happens this vehicle's mine, and so I know it's 100% R134. Okay, so we're going to take this one here, and we pull the trigger on this type connector and snap it down on there, and then we're going to be able to screw that down. In just a minute, I'll screw it the rest of the way down. I'm going to snap that one on there, and then I'm going to screw it down. You can hear a little gas hissing into it. All right, we're going to screw that in there like that. And we got to make sure that these hoses are not so that in a way so that they're gonna get in the belts and all that, which would be kind of silly. All right, now then, look at what we've got here for static pressures. Static pressures. We've got about just over 60 pounds of static pressure on each side, right? Okay, now when we start it up, the air conditioner is on. The compressor here is, this is the heart of the system, is gonna start pumping. And right back there, it goes into the evaporator, you see? This goes into the evaporator. And now this is not part of the AC system, it's part of the evaporative system, which is for fuel. It's really interesting that this part of the evaporative system is right close to the evaporator for the air conditioner, and they're unrelated to each other, right? All right, now right up in here is this liquid line. This line here leaves the compressor, goes to the condenser, and then that little liquid line leaves the condenser and goes back to the AC. The liquid turns into gas in the evaporator, and that's what causes that's what absorbs the heat. You got that? All right. And so now you've got this suction line coming back to the compressor. In the accumulator, and this right here is a fixed orifice system. You know, Chrysler kind of stayed away from that for years, but this one's got one on it. In the accumulator, you've got some desiccant, and you also have got some oil in there, and the accumulator is designed on the inside so that you cannot get any liquid to the compressor. Why do you not want to get liquid to the compressor? Because if you get liquid to the compressor, you can't squeeze liquid, and you're going to wind up destroying your compressor, right? Okay, now then, the oil that's in there, though, is misted in. It's designed to mix with this R134 refrigerant, and it's going to mist in here, and it's going to lubricate that compressor. Okay, now we're going to crank it up. We're going to watch those gauges really close so we can see what the pressures do when that compressor kicks in. All right, the compressor clutch is going to engage in just a minute. It engaged when the BCM decided it was time. All right, you might notice that the low side is going down and the high side is going up. Temperature and pressure are related on here. So what you're seeing right here, if you look at, you might even notice you've got Fahrenheit and Celsius. Okay, so this is at about 29 pounds. And what is your Fahrenheit reading according to that? Can you see that gauge with that camera, or you got glare?
Got glare.
All right. All right, turn it so she can see it. All right, she needs to bend it down, I mean, like that.
There you go.
Can you see it good? All right, zoom in on that gauge right there and tell me what the temperature of that low side is. Can you tell me what it is, more or less? In Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit's the innermost scale. That is between 30 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit, right? All right, now, on that side, it's between, the inside is Fahrenheit, isn't it? All right, now what is it over there? It's about 150 degrees. Now it's 220 pounds, which translates to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. This range right here is Celsius, the outer one. And so, there you go. That's what it looks like. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to give it a little gas. You notice the compressor kicked off. The compressor kicked off, look over here, because this low pressure cutout switch was designed to kill the compressor whenever it dropped below about 25 pounds. Now, on this particular unit, the engine controller, which is over there, way over there on the fender, see it over there? That's the engine controller, is actually monitoring these switches. It knows, basically it sends out 12 volts, and it basically knows when these switches close, because it shunts that 12 volts to ground. Now that 12 volts doesn't have any current, it's just a 12 volt voltage. On here, this is a high pressure cutout switch over here. And that high pressure cutout switch actually causes the high speed fan to kick on. Whenever this thing runs, if it gets hot enough, like if it's out in the sun or you're in traffic and all, and this pressure goes high enough, it can kick the compressor off, and it can also kick on that electric fan. We've got a belt driven fan on this Jeep. We've also got an electric one over there. All right, so this right here, this system here is basically not as full as it could be. It still cools good, but it only holds, believe it or not, 1¼ pounds of refrigerant. That's all it holds. It doesn't hold very much. Now the refrigerant that the older vehicles used to hold 2, 3, 4 pounds. But they've got them now to where the system's really tight, and it doesn't take a whole lot for it to do the job. All right, now you might notice the temperature of this is cool, and that's warm. Give me that temperature gun out of my left top desk drawer. All right, so this is a little bit of a study on that. This Jeep, incidentally, has got coil rail. It's got the three coils built into a rail right here instead of having any spark plug wires or distributor or anything. It's pretty cool. That right down there is the cam sensor. It's an adjustable component, but you really better know what you're doing when you adjust it. There's my new $46 oil pressure sending unit I had to replace. And on this Jeep, if you're changing the oil, it's easier to reach right here and change the oil filter than it is from the top. All right, now the temperature of this accumulator is not that good. It's like 89, 90 degrees, which feels fairly cool to us. Or this one right here, look at that one right there. That line there is 176. And this one right here, see, by the time it gets there, it's already come up to 153. Right there, it's 94. Let's see, as we go, it gets warmer. And the closer we get to it, the farther we get away. All right, so the liquid line down there, see, we're downstream of the orifice now. See, as we go farther into the, let me follow that down, see? I go farther down there, it starts to get warmer to a certain extent. Now right down there we're 100 degrees, but as we come closer, this is actually starting to turn into a gas and it's absorbing heat. And all that. So that's making that, it's absorbing heat out of that line right there.
Is that because it kind of expanded, the pipe got a little wider?
Well, actually, the fixed orifice on this one is way back up here. Feel of that line right there. What do you feel?
Pretty cool.
It's cold, isn't it? That's a cold line. Now, it ought to still be really cold coming out here if we had plenty of refrigerant charge. If you've got a good refrigerant charge on an AC system, this line right here is going to be cold all the way to the compressor. This one's not. It's cooling, but just not that well. In a really hot summertime, it wouldn't do so good. Now, what I used to do when I was going to charge this up, if I was going to charge it up and I knew it was getting pretty low, if an AC system has not gone atmospheric, you can just add some refrigerant real easy. If it has, like if you've had the system apart, you have to get the air out of it before you put refrigerant in it. If you don't get the air out of it, then you're going to have high head pressure. Because what happens if you've got air in there, what can the refrigerant do? It can change from a liquid to a gas, can't it? Air can't do that. All air does is you wind up with a super duper air compressor here. And you'll see the head pressure go up to 400 or 500 pounds before you say don't do it. Now this compressor has got a pop-off valve on it. It'll make a big noise and you'll hear a loud noise from under the hood and you'll see some shh if that fan doesn't kick on. All right, now what's our pressures looking like now? Look up here on our gauge. I've had it idling a while. See, as the compressor kicks off and on, and the compressor's off right now, see, it's short cycling. That's what we call it whenever it's low on refrigerant. What we're going to do with this one here is I'm going to show you how you're going to deal with one like this. It's got a super slow leak that, it takes months for the refrigerator to get going out of it. And if you're going to have to try to fix one like this, the right way to do it is to begin with to go in there and replace all the O-rings, every O-ring in it. And from some of the air conditioner part suppliers, you can get an entire set of O-rings for this entire system in a little pack. Got it? Okay, but you'd replace these, you replace the O-rings here, you replace all the O-rings. Occasionally you'll have a leak right here where it's coming here. Ordinarily, when you have a leak, you're going to have greasy place wherever the leak's at. Not all the time. It was worse on R12 than it is on R134.
Air compressor, air conditioner grease.
Huh? Well, it's going to be some of the refrigerant oil that's going to leak out with it. All right, now, the refrigerant oil is throughout the whole system, but there's a pretty good bit puddled up in here. And then it's got a looped pipe with a little screened hole in the bottom so it can pick some of that stuff up. Okay, now this right here will be a source of your leak on some systems. The compressor will have a porous casting, or it'll be leaking from its front seal or something like that. this particular one, this compressor is not that old. I paid about $300 for that compressor when I replaced it. And the one that I had put on there, I pulled off, wasn't all that bad. I just replaced the compressor because it had some miles on it, and I had the money, so what the hey, keep it in good shape, you got something in good shape. Okay, switch it off. We're gonna remove this set of gauges, and we're gonna roll that card over there out of the way, and we're gonna bring our AC machine and we're gonna hook it up. This is a $1,000 refrigerant identifier. Anybody that is serious about doing AC work is gonna have a refrigerant identifier. And a refrigerant identifier will tell us what is in the machine, what's in the vehicle. Now you notice we've got a hose here. We're going to hit calibration. We haven't hooked our hose up to this machine yet. We're going to hit calibration and we're going to let it calibrate. Well, while it's doing that, we're going to hook this up to the low side. We don't want any liquid coming to the machine. That's why we're going to the side that's got gas in it. We're not going to tighten that down yet. We're going to let the machine go. This little filter here, if it ever gets any red dots on it, you're supposed to replace it. All right. Okay. In a minute it'll stop, and we'll go ahead and connect our hose. Now this hose is not completely leak-free. It's got a little bit of a hiss to it, but not very much. It's going to just get enough of a sample so we can tell what we got there. Now that it's finished all that, we're going to put our line on there. We're going to tighten this down. So that's going to depress that little Schrader valve in there. We're going to get some refrigerant. We're going to hit the R134A button. And this will take only 30 seconds. At least that's what the screen's telling us. And we're going to see if it's 100% R134, if it's got hydrocarbons in it, if it's got some R12 mixed with it, or if it's got air. All right. We got a really good, solid opportunity to find out what's in there. Now, if we get a favorable report off of this, pass 100% R134. Ta-da! Now we can be at peace with hooking our big fancy machine up to it. Machine here is a refrigerant recovery machine, recovery and recycle machine. And there is some certification that I have to have as an instructor that every mechanic that works on air conditioning is supposed to have. If money changes hands and you're fixing air conditioners, you better be certified or you're talking $32,000 fines. Just so happens that since I'm certified, I can work on air conditioners without incurring a $32,000 fine. However, because I'm at a school and my certification covers the students, you see, because they're actually learning. Okay, so I'm connecting the hoses the same way I did with the gauge earlier. All right. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to recover the refrigerant that's in this Jeep, and we're going to weigh it as we're pulling it out. And we've got the machine plugged in. It's kind of noisy when we turn it on. The first thing that we get when we turn on this machine here is we get some numbers on how much refrigerant is in it. It's got 4.23 pounds in it right now. Now since we're going to recover, we're going to turn both of these to the recover vacuum setting, and we're going to hit recover. Now let me say this really quick, and it's important that I say this. If the system's been open and there's air in it, we don't hit recover to get the air. We actually hit vacuum. But in this case, we're going to hit recover. And then we're going to let it clear, and then it's going to start recovering, and you're going to see these needles starting to go down. And it will tell us when it's done how much refrigerant that it has pulled out. Now we have the refrigerant leaving, going into the machine. You got to remember this Jeep holds about 1¼ pounds, and this particular thing is letting us know that we don't really have all that much coming out of there. Now one of the interesting things about this is if you do it on a cold day, it's really hard to get all the refrigerant out unless you first warmed up the engine compartment where it's really hot. And then on this kind of machine, the slightly older machines, the newer, the J2788 certified machines, are supposed to get 95% of the refrigerant out in a certain amount of time. This one here, you may have to do it a couple of times if the weather's cool. And this one here doesn't have any real software updates available with an SD card like the new machines have and all that. But this machine's good and legal for what we're doing. The interesting thing about this, the way the law is written, when I take this machine out of service, I can't sell it, I can't even give it away, it has to go in the scrap. Because it's not certified as a J2788 machine, and I can use it as long as I own it, but I can't give it to anybody else, I can't sell it to anybody else. Federal law. And we all know how much we love federal law. Okay, now then, look, we've only pulled out 0.32, and our gauges indicate that we're almost completely empty. Not good. We're going to need to put some more refrigerant back in it. We didn't pull out very much. Now, whenever we put refrigerant back in, this machine's going to put it in through this line here that goes to the high side. When you're putting it in with a set of gauges like we have over there, you're going to put it in through this low side line. So you're going to let the system, the low pressure in the system is going to be less than what's in your can. And while the engine's running, it takes a long time to do that. While the engine's running, it's going to pull it in. This right here will pump it in there really fast. All right. Now see, it's still recovering. It's only got about ½ a pound. This air conditioner in the temperature we've been having lately, which has been about 80 degrees, has been cooling pretty well. All right, now see here, we're at 0. In a minute, it's going to tell us that it's recovered all the refrigerant. And when it tells us that, we're going to wait and see if this leaks back up. Because sometimes that refrigerant is going to be, some of it will be trapped in that oil, and you're going to have a sort of a Coca-Cola effect where it's, you know, outgasses some refrigerant from the oil. And if it does that, this pressure will go back up and we'll have to hit recover again. All right, now it's going to come to a place in a minute where it says draining oil. And we're supposed to look on the side of the machine, see how much oil was in there to start with, and we're supposed to put that much back in there. Make sure you're just putting the right kind of oil in there. That's done back here with these bottles. All right. Right now we've pulled ½ a pound out. And see, we're actually going into negative pressure here. On both sides of the system, we're in negative pressures. And the refrigerant is completely gone. All right. We're going to let it keep working just to see what it's going to tell us when it's done. And it recovers. It's not going to recover any more than ½ a pound. It's already got enough out of there. And so, shoot it again. You do it now? It says recovery complete, but you notice the needle is going back up. Now the needle is going back up because the refrigerant is escaping from the oil that's in that accumulator over there. And if we sit here for a little while, we'll see it go back up into the positive side, and we need to recover some more. Now we know we've recovered ½ a pound, but we're going to get a little more out of it. We won't get much, but we will get some more. See, that needle is steadily climbing. These right here are marker needles here that you can adjust to see how much, you know, it gains or loses. And after we're sure we've recovered all the refrigerant, which is what the J2788 certified machine will do without us having to repeatedly do it. See, we have to watch this one, and as it outgasses, we got to pull some more. We're going to let it go back up. See, when that needle, as long as that needle is still climbing, we're going to watch it. But it's actually, we're going to let it release refrigerant from that oil, because we don't want to overcharge the system. If you overcharge the system, it doesn't cool well, and it actually causes pressures to go too high and that kind of thing. Right. Looks like it's leveled off at about 8 pounds. Okay, we got to hit stop now, and then we're going to hit recover again, and we're going to go ahead and hit start this time and let it start recovering right away instead of doing this clearing thing. All right. Now see, look what it's doing. It had already recovered down into the negative area, and it's recovering another 3/10 of a pound there, 4/10 of a pound. And you see our needles coming back down. Isn't that kind of crazy? We had already recovered ½ a pound, and you just sworn we had all of it out of it, wouldn't you? But now we're recovering some more. By the time it gets through, we will have recovered, counting what was in the oil and everything, an amount equal to what was just about supposed to be in there. So that means it wasn't all that low. It was low, but it wasn't that low. When we get it charged up right, then we're going to see a cold evaporator line, all the way, a suction line, excuse me, all the way to the AC compressor. See, we're back into the negatives again. We got to make doggone sure that we got everything out of this. We don't want to just shoot some more back in there. See, whenever you're doing it out in the backyard or something, if you're trying to gas it with a can. There's a lot of things that this equipment's going to tell you that you just don't know. It's good to have some gauges, but you also need qualified equipment here so that you don't vent refrigerant to the atmosphere. See, we released a bunch of refrigerant just then. All of a sudden, there was some that outgassed from a pocket somewhere, and it went back up. We will have recovered almost a whole pound. See, it's pulling back down. Occasionally, it'll jump back up, and then it'll pull some more. All right. We're back down into the negatives again. And I will tell you something else that'll happen too. In some cases, I've known of shops that would just pull out what was in there, put the proper charge back in there without any regard for how much oil their recovery process had removed. And they wind up doing that so many times, they've pulled enough oil out of the system so that the compressor locks up because it's not getting lubricated enough, and we don't want to go there. Okay, see? Recovery complete. We recovered almost another half a pound, which means we've recovered just under a pound, and we're going to watch that needle for a little while now and see if it climbs back up. You see, it's not moving as aggressively now as it did before, because we've got some more refrigerant out of it. Okay, now what we've got one that's staying in the negative. It rose a little bit, but there's not enough in there to matter anymore. So what we're going to do, we're going to leave these lines where they are. We're going to hit stop, and now we're going to vacuum. Now, since this thing hadn't been open to the atmosphere, we don't have to vacuum it very long. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start the vacuum, and we're going to hit, I'm just going to go ahead and vacuum this one because it's mine for 5 minutes, not 50 minutes. I'm going to do it for, 5. Nope, let me stop. I got to start over. Okay, start, excuse me, vacuum, start, 5. 5 minutes. We're going to hit that, and for 5 minutes we're going to let it vacuum. What we're wanting to see is that needle there come all the way to 30 inches, and we're going to turn off the vacuum at that point and let it stay there a little bit and see if it leaks back up. Completed our vacuum, and we seem to be holding pretty good. I like for it to be deeper than that, the vacuum to be deeper. That's good enough for right now. We've been sitting here a little while. It hasn't moved. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this over here, and just for the purposes of demonstration, I'm actually going to, see, we mark our little oil jug here. We got oil. This is oil in it, refrigerant oil for R134. I'm going to put a ½ ounce of oil in it by turning that. See the oil going down? The oil's going down. I'm putting a ½ ounce of oil in it and just letting the vacuum suck it in there. Okay. All right, that's all I'm going to put in there. Okay, if you change out the compressor, the accumulator, the evaporator, the condenser, the book is going to tell you there's certain amounts of oil you're supposed to put in. Most refrigerant systems takes about 6 or 7 ounces. If you replace each component, it'll tell you if you replace the condenser, you're supposed to put so much oil in it. If you replace the compressor, you obviously need to do that. Some compressors come with oil in them, some don't. Okay, now we're going to tell it, and we're going to stop the vacuum, and we're going to tell it we want to charge. We got 5½ pounds in here, which is a lot more than we need. Okay, this one here holds 1¼ pounds, actually about 1.2, and we're going to just put 1.2 in there to be safe. Change that, 1.2, and we're going to start, and watch how fast it goes in there. Okay, you see it? We're actually putting it in this side. You notice this valve is open and that one's not. They've got this one blocked so that you can't even open it. And that refrigerant is going in there super fast. Now, if you're just letting it suck it out of the can in the low side, it doesn't go in there all that. Got it? All right, we put a ½ pound in there. See, we had almost a pound in it when we started. But when we pulled everything out, we pulled out almost a pound. We're not going back that much more than what we had, but look, our static pressure is already up to about 80 pounds. It's 100 pounds on the high side because that's where it's going in at. All right. See, this is going to keep counting up until it gets to where, all right, we've gone past a pound now. We're going to go to 1.2. See where our static pressure is. Not any good numbers in any book anywhere I've ever seen on static pressures. And what that means is you can tell a little bit by looking at static pressure, but you don't have any hard and fast numbers. because it's basically tied to ambient temperature and some other factors. All right, it's charged. See, we're through. All right, now you're going to go start it up, and we're going to watch these pressures. I'm going to close that. We're going to watch these pressures, and we're going to see what happens this time. And Kelsey, what did you do with that temperature then? All right. Now watch those pressures when it kicks in. Let's see where they go. Now this right here, it's hard to shoot that accurately because of the fact that it's so close. But that right there feels cold to the touch. I don't know what the temperature actually is. This right here is about 150. This right here is now the cold. Feel it out. This was not all that cold earlier. Put your hand on it. Feel it, see it? Now that side's hot, yeah. And this line down here, because the orifice is way up here, this liquid line is cold all the way. That seems to me like they're wasting an awful lot of heat absorption when they put the refrigerant orifice way back up here. All right, so with that liquid line going in there. Now we got to have a nice cold air conditioner now, colder than it was before. It was cool enough whenever the weather is not too hot. Let's look over here. Now then, we notice we got about 260 pounds of high side pressure, and we got about 36 pounds of low side pressure. All right, now I'm going to give it some gas. Watch those pressures. Now, the compressor is not cycling off and on like it was before. That's another indication that we've got enough refrigerant in there so that the low pressure shutoff switch doesn't kick off and on and short cycle the compressor. Sometimes the compressor will short cycle on a cold day even when it's got a full refrigerant on it. And that pretty well winds up what we were trying to do here.